is the network service of the NTA.
Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Today we're at home, beaming ourselves live as the focus is on the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, that has been in the broadcast business for 40 years, championing nation building, integration and national cohesion. NTA, a government-owned and partly commercial broadcaster, was inaugurated in 1977, blazing the trail of broadcasting. Now, event watchers say the NTA stands out as the watchdog of society, bridging gaps between the government and the people for development. It is on record that NTA delivers quality programs to viewers on a wide range of issues, from the economy to national security. Now, many say NTA remains an authentic source of information in the country and has the strongest point in promoting unity, peace, and preserving the nation's norms and cultural values. But although critics accuse the NTA of reflecting only government views, it is adjudged by many as a rallying point for all citizens, providing a platform for effective feedback mechanism. And the NTA is still doing more as it migrates from analog to digital broadcasting. 40 years going. What's ahead for viewers and Nigeria? These are some of the issues we'll be talking about tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. But first, let's get to see this report by Adibola Brookslyn Sunday.
Television, an invention that came into being in late 1920, has become an integral part and good companion at homes in modern world, to the extent that people say it is hard to imagine life without it. In tropical Africa, television broadcasting began in Nigeria in October 1959 with the name Western Nigerian Television, WNTV, which was based in Ibadan, southwest Nigeria. And in 1977, WNTV and other stations were merged into one TV station, signaling the birth of the Nigerian Television, which was rebranded into the current Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, with Engineer Vincent Maduka as the pioneer Director General. Yakubu Ibn Muhammad is the current Director General, and he's been supported by vibrant executive directors to deliver on the mandates of the organization.
My vision for NTA is to conceptualize and produce programs that will be attractive not only to the young ones, but also to the older generation. And to do that, you have to, to go along with current trends in broadcasting.
The frontiers of the Nigerian Television Authority have increased over the years. Now, apart from the NTA network, the organization has NTA International, NTA News 24, and the multi-channels for the broadcast of Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo languages, news and programs, as well as the entertainment and the parliament channels, all equipped with the state-of-the-art facilities. Currently, there are 101 NTA stations spread across the nation, providing excellent television services and projecting the true African perspectives. Apart from news and programming, Observers describe the capability of the NTA's outside broadcasting as outstanding, with the vans stocked with high-definition facilities to meet the demand of the International Telecommunications Union (ITU) that all countries should migrate from analog to digital television broadcasting. The Nigerian Television Authority took the bull by the horns in collaboration with National Broadcasting Commission (NBC) to switch on some states of the Federation through the Integrated Television Services (ITS). As the station celebrates its 40 years of existence, however, it is expected that the issue of media salary structure, insurance cover for staff, and other special allowances will be looked into, as its staff can also be classified as essential workers. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. And tonight, I'm going to be introducing to you some gentlemen who can be described as the founding fathers of the NTA. It's a privilege that I'll be hosting 2 engineers and 2 newsmen, although one of them is also a lawyer. But let's get to meet our guest tonight. We'd like to welcome to this program, NTA Tuesday Live, the pioneer Director General of the NTA, Engineer Vincent Maduka. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Right, just to mention that Engineer Maduka also holds the record of being a 2-time Director General of the NTA, first between 1977 and 1982, and then from 1984 to 1985. It's a privilege to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're also joined tonight by Dr. Tony Radia, a newsman and also a lawyer. He was Director General from 2003 to 2008. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Now is the time of the second engineer we have in the studio, and we're talking about Engineer Shingle Wigwe, who was Director General of the NTA from 1986 to 1990. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
And the other newsman we have in our midst today is Malam Muhammad Ibrahim, who is Makaman Ringam, and he was Director General from 1990 to 1996. It's good to have you join us here.
Thank you.
As I said, it's a privilege to host this gentleman. My career spanned the tenure, that collective tenures, and so it's not all who have this privilege to turn to the former bosses and ask 40 years of broadcasting for nation building. How do you assess the NTA today?
Well, the people who can assess a broadcasting organization are the people out there. And the scientific way is to conduct surveys. You can make judgment in terms of, in subjective terms. When you say nation building, that's subjective. But if you want to know how effective a broadcasting organization is, it's going to be on the number of people it reaches and the level of credibility it has. If you say, my wine is the best wine, an advertisement, and they say, where did you hear that? You say, on NTA. Aha, that's true.
All right, we'll return to you and ask, as one who pioneered this organization, when you sit back, what do you see and what do people tell you? But let's go to Dr. Tony Radia and put the same question to you. NTA, 40 years of television broadcasting for nation building.
Well, Cyril, I think the best way for me to look at it is as a viewer, because for 10 years I've been out of here. So I'm now a viewer, and I watch and I see things, and I can say without any fear of contradiction that the NTA of today is better than the NTA of our days. And when I say it's better, I mean in terms of facilities. We never had the kind of things that we see all over the place now. I remember when Engineer Maduka was our DG, we could not even separate news from programs when it came to grade level 14. But today, you have general managers, assistant directors, all 15, 16, 17, all over the place. So NTA has actually blossomed. And to that extent, I want to think that we must give kudos to those who have sustained this service and who have made sure that they keep the flag flying. I believe that there's so much that one can say for the NTA. A lot of people talk about, oh, this station is better than this station, right? And I have friends who talk about that. And each time they talk about that, I come to the conclusion that they are not quite sure what they are saying. I have friends who tell me, well, I don't watch the NTA. I say, why? So they're always talking about the president, they're always talking about the vice president, the National Assembly. And for the first 20, 30 minutes of the news, they're talking about it. And I just turn back and look at him and say, you don't watch NTA and you watch for 30 minutes. After which you now knew what they are saying. And yet you don't watch the NTA. Suppose you were watching the NTA, what would you have done? You probably will watch when the NTA has ended. So that is a sign. And when I was DG, I used to tell my people, I said, look, those who say they don't watch the NTA, let them come to NTA. We put them on the screen. Let them insult somebody. Even at 2 a.m. in the morning, they find they are in court. Because a lot of people are watching and they are able to see what is happening on NTA.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll return to you. Well, let's go over to Engineer Shingle Wigwe. And your assessment, 40 years, and this organization has been on as what can be termed a public broadcaster, even though there are arguments on whether it is actually a public broadcaster.
When you talk about assessing NTA, I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it from the depth. Talking about depth, you want to think about the number of stations, quality stations that NTA itself has given birth to, and yet it is still surviving. I also think about the breadth where it had gotten to. NTA has battered several stations, including those that people say they have so much credibility today. It takes someone with credibility to bat someone with credibility. And so I think NTA has done quite a lot in terms of people it has brought up. It is the mother of all stations. And if you think of anyone who is who in Nigerian Television Authority, think about the source. It is NTA. You think about the spread, you begin to get into the various nooks and crannies that NTA has gotten into. Sometimes I look back and I think of some of the programs we used to have those days. There were programs, the moment people had the signature tune on the television, they were all racing home to watch. It all started with NTA, Zebuludaya. You remember that popular Igbo introductory tune you will hear, and people are running. That is the source of broadcasting in this country. And so NTA demands a lot of respect. NTA is credible in the sense that NTA never rushes to go and broadcast anything. Because the moment you say it is NTA, then people say, yes, it must be true. So there is a lot to say for NTA.
All right, thank you. Well, let's come to Bala Mohammed Ibrahim.
Well, you look at the development of broadcasting. NTA has pioneered the development of modern television broadcasting in this country. It started, of course, as an analog station, moving gradually into the new technology called digitization. And the sudden expansion of the services, not in terms of having 101 transmitters or whatever across the country, no. In terms of having other languages coming on air, appealing to people, sustaining the interest of the viewer, and delivering the service as it ought to do. And when you look at other aspects also, which NTA is using in terms of modern technology, you just feel proud that you are part and parcel, or you are once part and parcel of this grandmother, if you like, of Nigerian television broadcasting. So when I look at the language services, when I look at the sudden expansion of the ability of NTA to cover sports, both locally and internationally, I think that's something which NTA can congratulate itself for a job well done. Of course, no matter what you do, the critics will say NTA is this, NTA is that. The fact that it is public service opens NTA to so many criticisms, severe criticism. And people look at anything government as something to be condemned, criticized, and not to be appreciated. But look at the development of television broadcasting, how much NTA has contributed to expanding the industry, not necessarily in NTA, within the entire country. I think that is a remarkable achievement in which we should be able to congratulate ourselves.
All right, let me just say at this point that you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio at the appropriate time. The various platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. However, for those who will be phoning in, we say this every Tuesday. When your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. Just turn down the volume. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through is your name. You'll see your name appear on screen. Now, once you see your name on screen, it means your call is through to the studio. Just go right ahead with your question or comment. Don't bother too much about the greetings. Go straight on to the point and keep it as short as possible so other people can get on the platform. And whatever issues you raise, our guest tonight will be willing to take them on and respond to them. So once again, be part of this program. And 40 years of broadcast information building. These are the issues we're looking at. How far has the NTA performed this role, and what's going to happen in the future as we go digital? And we come back to Engineer Vincent Maduka and say, yes, you have had to go through, run this organization during the military era, and with the challenges of a military government, how did the NTA discharge its responsibilities of keeping Nigeria one in those tough days?
Well, the military were very committed to keeping Nigeria one. They just come out of the Civil War, and I mean, I don't need to sing their praise, but I think they're probably more committed to the unity of this country than politicians. Because their entire training, they actually give their lives for the nation and so on. So they're very committed people to unity. And that's one area where you might get into difficulty with them. Because if you argue with them about what you call balance and all that, and I mean, they're very clear. You cannot maintain balance between evil and good and say you give equal time to. So they are committed to unity, they are committed to the oneness of the nation. And so if you're able to get on that same cause with them, you have an easier time. Not so with politicians, I'm afraid. Because you could go into an argument with a military man, with a military head of state, military minister, and you might be able to convince him to see the point of view of a broadcaster. Unlike the politician, who really sees this verticality between himself as a boss and the broadcaster as an errand, as a messenger of theirs. And you can't argue and persuade a politician. Well, I couldn't argue easily with them and persuade them. But the soldiers are tougher, but you can argue with them and you can let them see why you're doing what you're doing. And it's all right, you carry on, let's see. And the politician says, no, we're not taking chances. We're here for only 4 years. We told them before. Unfortunately, because Nigeria is longer than 4 years.
Right. But what is this thin line? how's this broadcaster able to, you know, balance issues? It's a thin line, actually. You're seen as being outside that, you know, not, you know, doing what the owners, in quotes, of the network want you to do, and then also keeping professionalism and the interest of the general citizens. How difficult is that?
Well, start by defining owners. The owners are the Nigerians. The politicians and the military government tells you they are the owners. But we like to say in broadcasting that the public are the owners of a public service organization. Yeah, it's not easy to understand. It's not easy for the government to accept this kind of position. The government can own a school, but the government can be the party that established a broadcasting service. Once you've delivered a broadcasting service, broadcasting really belongs to the people themselves. You see, you cannot get feedback, for instance, which you raised earlier, from the public if they don't feel part of the system. If it's them versus us, then clearly you're not getting that oneness of the nation. Everybody must feel part of the train. And at best, the government is the driver. And it's something we all need to get used to. But the politician sees broadcasting as a tool for power. The military, remarkably, who are managers of power, in my experience, saw broadcasting as a tool not for their power, but for reaching and reacting to the people's welfare and views and opinions.
All right. Dr. Iridia, how do you see this?
Well, I was not fortunate to be like Engineer Maduka, who was dealing with the military.
Right.
And the politicians.
I dealt only with politicians.
Right.
And, Engineer Maduka has underscored the real issue with the politician. And somehow it makes me wonder why politicians don't change at all. You see politicians, they're angry that the NTA, for example, is covering the opposition. They're angry at the point when they are in government. Then they leave government, the opposition comes to government. The opposition that was angry that they were not giving any coverage now starts to do exactly what was done against them. In which case, head or tail, the NTA must be on its toes all the time. I had a very interesting tenure because the politicians were up in arms against NTA. There are so many options that came up, and they would say, no, we don't want to hear that, you cannot give another person. There was a very interesting case I had when all of a sudden, then the government wanted us to stop covering Atiku Abubakar, who was vice president, because there was problem in government and he was not agreeing. This now is not another party. This is now two people in the same party, one president, one vice president, and there was tension. And the NTA correspondent, when I went on leave, was recalled from Atiku's office. I got back and I saw there was nothing coming from Atiku's office. I looked for the reporter, I saw him. I said, why are you not reporting from Atiku? So he was withdrawn. By who? He said he was told management. I said, who is management? I said, no. Go back to that office and report from there. Well, he went back. And after 2 days, I was summoned. I was told, why are you against us? And why should you be projecting the vice president when you know that he's no more in the good books of the government? And my answer was simple, that for as long as the man is vice president, we'll continue to cover the office of vice president. So if you don't want us to cover the office of vice president, you remove the man. If you don't remove him, we will continue to cover that office. It didn't go down well. There are many things. You see, this evening as I was coming in, I saw one of our correspondents who was in Senate, and the Senate came here and said, remove him. I said, what did he do? He said, oh, he's heady. He doesn't greet. He doesn't listen when you are talking to him. He just does. So I explained to them, I can't remove him because I didn't send him to come and greet. If I have sent him to come and greet you and he doesn't greet you, I'll remove him. I sent him to cover events. Which event did he not cover? If you can tell me the event he did not cover, then I will call him back. You will see a politician will come to you and say, I want this person sacked. Why? Oh, I don't like his stories. You don't have to like his story, because he's covering stories that happened. But if you can prove to me that this story did not happen, it's a different ball game. Now, I had problem with them because I'm a journalist. So when you are talking to me, you are talking to a professional, you are talking to an operator, even though I was DG, and people even saw me doing programs, and those programs many times created tension. So the DG of our station is asking this type of question. You know, all that type of problems were there, and they were happening, and I was seeing them happening, and I was seeing that there was nothing I could do but to just continue with what I was hearing. So sometimes you begin to wonder, how can the government be better treated? Now, look, we have an electoral act. What does that electoral act say? It says equal time for all political parties. That is a law made by the politicians. Equal time for all political parties. Yet, if another party that is not in government is covered, the person who did the coverage is gone. And that is the fate of people like us who manage television. So when I say NTA has done very well, one of the things I am thinking about is that it is not easy to manage politicians.
Well, it's also not easy to manage the soldiers as well, even though Engineer Maduka has said perhaps you could argue with them. But Malam Muhammad Ibrahim, you also had your experiences, and with things like this, in a scenario like this, how was the NTA able to balance issues and still provide that platform of being a national broadcaster with an eye on the unity of Nigeria and providing the platform for people of diverse opinions and cultures?
Well, let me go back to 1979, 78, 79, when party politics returned. And we set as NTA management under Mr. Maduka's chairmanship to look at how NTA would cover electioneering, handle the political parties, and also the government in power. So we came up with the guidelines for electioneering, equal airtime, and in one section of the guidelines, we said even if the power, there was NEPA power failure in that particular area, when a party political broadcasts were going on, it had to be repeated. So all those rigid rules and regulations were set up. Now, the military were extremely happy when the guidelines were shown to them, they read them. In fact, they congratulated NTA for a job well done. So, as Mr. Mudka said that you could argue with them. Yes, it was very easy to convince a military officer, no matter how highly placed, that look, if the public would not believe us, we are no good to you. So we had to allow NTA to maintain its credibility. As long as NTA is not credible, it is noise to any government. And this is the same with the politicians, but in a different way. And the politicians tend to dismiss that argument as nonsense. What? Not nonsense, but lightly, thinking that with credibility or no credibility, as long as they are in power, NTA had to sustain their position, their policies, promote all these issues. So I believe we had a problem, but NTA has done remarkably well in trying to ensure that that credibility has always been at the back of our mind. Whether you are DG, whether you are director of news, whether you are a reporter, what you are bringing to the studio, what you are putting on air, must be believed, so that you could go back home at the end of the day and say, I had achieved quite a lot.
Right. Okay. The phone lines are open, and that means you can get a call into the studio and air your views. Do we have a caller on the line? Raphael from Lagos, hello.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I want to be part of the program that is concerned.
Right, go right ahead.
First and foremost, let me congratulate NTA for 40 years in existence. And I must confess that for the past 40 years, they have done tremendously good. And I must tell you that from that time to this present time, being digitalized, I think our programs, they have been wonderful, especially during the tenure of Tony Radia. Excellent programs, and different things were showcased. In a nutshell, I want to congratulate NTA. They have done beautifully well. And I wish NTA more grace.
Right. Thank you very much, Raphael. All right, Engineer Maduka, there are times of national crisis when it would seem that discordant voices all over the country, and the NTA has always been looked on as one organization that can play a key role in bringing people together, assuaging tempers, and that it has done in 40 years. But it hasn't been without some measure of criticism from the public, who see that sometimes they like to think that the NTA does not come out with all of it.
Well, what you call all of it is what is, how do I put it? It's what you now call hate speech, perhaps. I mean, that's an extreme. But as far back as 1977, NTA's code of broadcasting forbade what you call hate speech. It's nothing like you have when there are political tensions. When there are party political tensions, hate flies all over. NTA, well, not just NTA, television in Nigeria has gone through wartime. I mean, we were involved in the Civil War, and as I said earlier, certain things are national values. The unity of the country is the starting point. And as I said also, you don't give equal time. The law says you give equal time to all parties. But you don't give equal time to the devil and to the angel. I mean, that is abuse of equality or fairness. So you draw the line between what is desirable and what is a crisis. A crisis is a time of tension that would come and pass. And your job is how to make it pass quickly, smoothly. And if that's the principle on which you are working, you then tend to be partial. I say tend to be partial because you cannot give equal time to promoters of crisis as well as those who are peacemakers. And these are the kinds of periods you have to take this kind of judgment that, as they say, what is good, and what is bad, is bad.
Right.
You have to make that judgment. But if there are two political parties arguing on whether you work 5 days a week or 6 days a week, these are general partisan differences. The law says you give them equal time.
Right.
But as I said, you don't give equal time to support a breakup of the country or a crisis that will upset the stability of the nation.
Okay. Well,
so that's the kind of judgment you must make on your own.
Okay. All right. We'll return to the phones now. And Kalim from Bauchi, hello. Are you still there?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes.
It's a pleasure joining this program, sir. I am so much addicted to NTA that I don't mind watching NTA 24 hours.
All right.
And my concern is I was so much on a radio, the point blank, and this program has stopped. I am so much worried. Please, may he use this opportunity to return that program.
All right. Kalim, that's it? Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, well, we'll keep an eye on that and raise it at the appropriate quarters. But let me still dwell on this matter of managing crises. Now, already as a journalist, there's always this argument. When should you tell it all, as it were? And when should you think about the impact of what you tell it? There's a simple example many people use. They say you're driving on the road to Kaduna, for instance, and there is a crisis out there, and 20 people are killed. Now, do you come back and say, as a journalist, you report 20 people have been killed by Group A because you want to tell it all? Or do you manage the information about how many people have been killed and under what circumstances? Having in mind that if you went ahead and said 20 people have been killed by Group A, then Group B are likely to start get up and
kill 30.
Kill 30.
Thank you, Cyril. First and foremost, let's look at the issue of ethical values. Every profession has its values. Every profession has its rules, has its do's and don'ts. The thing with Nigerians is that they want to use public opinion values to assess NTA. But NTA has values of the profession, of the occupation that they are handling. With those values say what you can do and what you cannot do. For example, from the values of broadcasting, you are not supposed to project centrifugal factors, factors that divide the nation. Because if you do so and the nation gets divided and there's crisis and there's no nation, you yourself will have nowhere to operate from. To that extent, you must serve as a tool for societal integration. So it's not enough to just say you tell it all. Because if you tell it all, then it means there's no watchdog, right? And the meaning of watchdog is that it is the duty of the media to determine what people should see. That is, things that are of value, things that can keep the country together. Now, that is not to say that people should engage in censorship and say things that happened, you kill them, and say they didn't happen. But it is very wrong to be talking about figures. When you say 20 people were killed, the way you have said now, did you really count them? You couldn't have counted them. 20 is even okay. There are times when you say 300. How did you count them? You'll be creating problems. You'll be spreading collective disturbance if you just carry a story the way it happened. You must treat a story. That's the difference between a journalist and a citizen journalist. A citizen journalist is a storyteller. A trained journalist is a reporter. He reports not just news, but how news affects society. How the society, what it means to the society for you to have carried the story you have carried. So to that extent, people must understand that. There is what we call the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. It's a set of rules and regulations which all broadcasters are expected to follow, whether they are NTA, whether they are state, federal, or private. Now, what are the rules there? The rules there say, for example, what the question you have asked, that whenever there's crisis, the duty of the journalist is to calm tempers, right? Is to calm frayedness, is to ensure that the crisis comes down, not to escalate it. Because if you say 20 people were killed by A, you have even gone too far. You don't even need to say who killed them. Just say 20 people were killed in Kaduna today, and somebody will tell you, oh, did you hear? They said they have been killing Igbos in Kaduna. Because as far as they are concerned, it is non-Hausas that will be killed in Kaduna. So they just say Igbos. I mean, there was a case in 2000, very interesting in this country. A newspaper carried a report that dozens of Igbos who were killed in the north have been taken to Onitsha because of crisis in the north. And then there was riot in Owerri, there was riot in Enugu and other places. There was no riot in Onitsha, where the people were allegedly taken to. You know why? Because nobody was taken there.
Right. Okay. All right. At this point, we'll just quickly go back to the phones. And Kenneth from Makudi, right? You're on the line. Thanks for staying on. Hello.
Very much, Siri. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening to the guests in the studios. Yeah, I must congratulate. Let me congratulate NTA at 40. It's not an easy journey from 1978 to this period. Some of us were born. NTA came on board before we were born, but we came to meet NTA. We experienced a lot of good things. Before now, NTA was a station, and up to this moment, some of us respect NTA due to some of the programs and some of the presenters and news anchors. Like Siri, started hearing of Siri when I was a little boy, and for that I took interest in journalism, in broadcast journalism, when I was in primary 2, way back in the 90s. So coming of age, I took interest in one of the director generals who is right there in the studio, Tony Radio, who used to do a program on NTA, Point Blank. It was a very interesting program. Some of us really appreciated how NTA came on. I wanted to suggest something to NTA as a clock 40 in 2018. They should try it as much as possible and take all the universities in this country. We have mass communication departments in all these universities. You see, you go down there, you check some of the students, graduates, undergraduates, who are so much interested in doing this particular business, in broadcasting. Try to know what they're after. You pick them, let them work with you. Sometimes maybe you give a kind of scholarship, the federal government can sponsor them, and in areas where they're so much interested in, so that we can rebrand NTA more than the way it's supposed to stand today. Because some of the stations across, your zonal stations across the country, they're not really doing good. Just like the one in Makudi here, I did my IT there twice, and what I saw on ground was not actually good. Try getting in touch with the national levels, the national the sense of the station, but I couldn't. So I'm advising here that the issue of broadcasting, more especially in NTA, should be taken more serious, because everybody that has owned a television station in this country must have the story to talk about Nigerian Television Authority. I appreciate the federal government, and you people have put in your best during your time. Try as much as possible, speak to the federal government, and let that best continue from where you people stopped. I see you in the studio. I was so happy seeing a crop of people like this in the studios, and then telling us exactly where broadcasting in this country, NTA in particular, is supposed to be. It's a very nice one, sir. I so much appreciate you, and this is a wonderful thing. But if the federal government can get into one of the suggestions I've just said, I think it will help us better. A lot and a lot and a lot. People watch NTA. People should not deceive that people doesn't watch NTA. We speak interest in NTA, and we'll be watching NTA, and we'll continue watching NTA in the next 100 million years to come.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, and your views are noted. Yes. International Wigwe.
Yes.
Still managing crisis situations.
Right.
You experienced a few under your watch as well, where you had to balance what was in the national interest and what many people on the street said, tell us all that's happening. Bear it all.
Now, I think one of the greatest responsibility of any broadcaster, particularly those who produce the news, is how to manage the reports you get on the scene. Unfortunately, in this country, indeed, those who are outside seem to be better managers than those who are employed, those who've gone through the skill, those who've gone through the training of managing the skill. I wish indeed that the type of respect you give to most professionals, like a doctor tells you don't do this, if you do it you will die, you will obey him, that they will also transfer such respect to journalists who are in broadcasting. Because one of the greatest things they do is to ensure that there is a country after that crisis. And so when you have a crisis of that nature, like have been said previously, you don't go to now just say it as it is, because saying it as it is may exacerbate, the situation. And therefore, it is important to manage these things properly, and that is why people are properly trained to handle things of this nature. There was one that happened in my time. There had been a report, and this report happened in NIA, for instance. A previous head of state had made a pronouncement. And after he made that pronouncement, there was a standing ovation for him. I could see the crisis blowing up. I won't go into the details of that report. When they were given the standing ovation, I carefully got into my car, was going back to my home. I got a message from the VP. That story must not see the light of day. I got to my say that was not sufficient. Then the national security officer now tells me, called me by my first name, said that story must not see the light of day. I got back into my car, got back to NTA, I said, can I have that tape, please? I picked up that tape and came back home. As far as I'm concerned, I thought that situation could have been managed in a way that the truth would be told, at the same time, coming out, and then, of course, if need be, there would be correction. But I was not allowed to handle that situation. So it is important that those in government would consider those who are in this room the authority, the power to handle situations of that nature, because they are also thinking about the country in which they live.
All right. Back to the phones. We have from Umar here, Bonnie, who's on the line. Hello.
Hello?
Hello, Bonnie. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. First, I want to congratulate NTA for turning 40. I want to also congratulate my elders who are there, my superiors and senior colleagues. I want to congratulate all of you who contributed in very special ways in getting NTA and broadcasting in Nigeria to where it is today. I pray that God will continue to keep all of you, because we still have much to benefit from you. I want to ask, having come this far, how do we achieve community broadcasting? Because so much is lacking out there, and then the new media we have seems to be creating all kinds of problems for the journalism profession and even broadcasting. So I think that the government needs to be properly advised in this regard, and then those who are also coming into it. And secondly, 2019 general elections is coming up. How will NTA and indeed the Federal Ministry of Information be advised to manage the issues that are going to come up? Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Right, thank you very much, Bonnie. Raised so many issues here, and Madam Mohammed Ibrahim is in a very good position to talk about community broadcasting, certainly, because if we look at what goes on in many parts of the country, there's what is generally referred to as government bashing. You're seen as not doing well unless you have a bad word to say about an administration in power, unless you knock people who hold positions, either rightly or wrongly. When you do that, now you're seen as a bold and fearless news person or media person. And yet these things happen mostly in urban centers, where you have a huge population in the rural settings who have little or no access, except for now that the regulation has taken the media to almost every part of the country. Let's get your views on that.
Well, you look at the nature of the Nigerian society. Nigerians enjoy scandals, enjoy crisis. believe in rumors, no matter how highly educated they are. Fortunately for broadcasting, as my colleagues have already said, broadcasting has its own rules and regulations. The law establishing NTA has put certain restrictions and limitations on certain issues. Going through experience, we have come to understand that stressing the positive is far more important than trying to encourage the rumor or the crisis or whatever it is. I remember very well during the, let me say, sectarian crisis in southern Kaduna in 1987. My reporter went with the military governor of Kaduna State. And what he saw broke him down completely. He was literally crying. He came back about 9 p.m. I was getting out of my house, and then they came with this newsboys. I said, look, tell us, what did you see? He told them what he saw, the dead bodies. Bodies were being retrieved from wells, burnt bodies, all these atrocious things. So, okay. It's impossible to count the number of people who were killed. So it's out of the question to speculate. 2, it's out of the question to talk in terms of House of Fulani versus whoever, whatever it is. As far as we're concerned, a sectarian crisis. All right? So write the story, let me see. Put our heads together and see how we can tell the public what happened without necessarily inciting the problem so that it could escalate. So we sat down there, put our heads together, 3 of us, and I wouldn't say watered down, but wrote a story which can be told by any responsible media, put across for people to know that there was a crisis. Yes, we leave it to the newspapers. If they said 1 million were killed, it was not our business. But people tend to forget that television, radio, these are mass media stations. Millions are listening. And once somebody hears a story, you don't know how he is going to react. He could escalate it, he could aggravate it. And so these are some of the things which we as broadcasters have a responsibility to make sure that we do not encourage it. We make sure that the fire is, some water is put on the fire so that at least the station, NTA, or any other responsible medium is not accused of encouraging and escalating the violence.
Right. Let's quickly go to Maiduguri and take on this call from Idris, who's calling in from Maiduguri. Hello, Idris.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Good evening, the gentlemen over there, the elder statesman and the everybody. Congratulations, NTA at 40. And congratulate you for all the effort you have been doing since the incident and up to today. I have not been following your program, particularly this evening, because I came late. But all what I know is I can see NTA at 40, and I know maybe progress, prospect, and the challenges ahead. However, I may like to say something, particularly with regard to NTA, digital, or whatever. You know, the masses or who are the audience may likely to have 2 things. One is reliability of information, and the second one is how soon can they get the information. Sometimes the masses in Nigeria has to depend on the foreign media for just an information. In fact, some of the, let me say, private TV channels, AIT, and all these things, it will take NTA 3 days or sometimes 2 days before the masses will see or will see news because everybody has already get it everywhere. What comes in news is how do we get it very fast, how do you get it reliable, and how do you get it very specific. So to me, NTA at 40, whether digital or analog, it doesn't matter. What is important is how do we rely on the information and how do we get it very fast? Because some of this information, before we hear, we have to get it from BBC, we have to get it from VOA, move to channel, and all this before NTA will come out with it, particularly the local news in Nigeria. Some of the media, they may not even carry, even if there is outbreak, if there is attack of Boko Haram, you will not hear it on the NTA. They will be blackout. So I don't know if you are independent, which you are just saying now that you want to be autonomous and whatever, you must get the information very fast, reliable, and the audience will have faith in whatever you are doing. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Idris, calling in from Maiduguri. Well, yes, in 40 years, the NTA has tried to be the balance and tried to provide a platform for the governed and the governors. But it hasn't been without challenges. And now let's look at those constraints in the early days. How you had to cope with the constraints. I'm talking about equipment. It was largely analog broadcasting, and the question of training, so that the personnel you had could perform this critical role that this medium has been called to do.
First of all, most of the journalists, because so far we're looking at more factual content. And at the end of the day, the factual content of a TV station is consumed largely by the more intellectual people, on the one hand. And then the mere hard facts are available for everybody. And it's the job of the journalist to explain the issues. See, reporting is not just saying what you saw. As much as possible, you have to assist the public to understand what you are showing them. Now, that requires training, it requires skills, it requires education. I mean, we tend to think that all that we need here is glamour and flair and so on. But you really need to be quite analytical and objective. And when we talk about managing stories, for instance, it's not that you don't say or that you shortchange your listener or the viewer. That's anybody can do that. That's not professional. It's the mode of presentation, how you explain things to them. I mean, the Chinese and who are socialists, on the one hand, and the Western world, in teaching some elements of journalism, developmental journalism, you use the example of the coverage of, say, a train accident. The Western world, we're told, and that's largely what Nigerians tended to do. You go there, you're counting the number of people who are killed, how much blood is flowing, and how much misery is there. Then the Chinese comes to the same scene exactly. And he's talking of the valor of the Chinese who are saving lives, who are helping to remove debris and to help the injured and assist them. The same event, two different sets of reports. So you need to know what you are reporting for. Now, the Western style is essentially commercial. If you call it sensationalism, then straight away it becomes negative. But they are pushing a consumer product. The more you push, the more you sell, the more profit you make, and you go into a spin. Whereas developmental journalism is journalism that assists the society to grow. Now, how did we cope in those days? It was difficult. But the first thing is to define what you want to do, and then to do as much or as little as you can do. Right. Rather than try to take on so much and do a bad job all the way. So if you go back, we didn't go on for 24 hours a day.
Right. Okay.
Because we didn't have the resources to do 24 hours.
All right, we'll take on the issue of resources, yes. But let's try and get in this call from Henry. Henry, where are you calling from?
From Abuja.
Right, Henry from Abuja, go right ahead.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to congratulate NTA for 40 years in Africa. And I want to point out, I like what you're saying. But you have to go, like just as the last speaker has said, you are setting a pace for us in Africa, not Nigeria alone. Your reporting has to be fast. When we get messages about what is happening in Nigeria, we shouldn't hear from other places. And another thing I want to talk about is your viewing of football. We are living in Nigeria. We have a station that is the biggest in Africa. We cannot sit down at home and watch Premiership. We cannot sit down at home and watch Champions League. We cannot sit down and enjoy. Even, I like your other station you have where you're showing our local, the Nollywood, the Hausa, the Igbos. What about the Western movies? Where is the position of NTA in all this? We need to, the way the broadcasting has gone, we are seeing other nations, if you want to be purely a news station, let us see the news the way they come. And we will know when we call ourselves, what is it called, the biggest network in Africa, we should set the pace for others to see. When you watch Ghana television, you discover that they have some innovation that are coming from there, and you see people today preferring to install Joy TV in their houses in Nigeria when we have NTA. So please, I'm happy that this is coming up, but I want us to go beyond what we are doing so that we will always appreciate you. Don't forget, I have mentioned the football. When Nigeria is playing football in other countries, sometimes we cannot watch.
Okay.
So please, I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. It's a good thing that as you were rounding off, you mentioned Nigeria playing. You talked about Champions League and the Premiership. I didn't quite catch you talking about the Nigerian Premiership League, but we'll address those issues you raised after this time out, because we're still talking about 40 years of broadcasting, nation building, the NTA. So we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll look at the other aspects, the constraints, the challenges, the equipment, deregulation of the industry, and what lies ahead. Stay with us.
Is the network service of the NTA. Is the network service of the NTA.
welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Today, we're at home, beaming ourselves live as the focus is on the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, that has been in the broadcast business for 40 years, championing nation-building, integration, and national cohesion. NTA, a government-owned and partly commercial broadcaster, was inaugurated in 1977, blazing the trail of broadcasting. Now, event watchers say the NTA stands out as the watchdog of society, bridging gaps between the government and the people for development. It is on record that NTA delivers quality programs to viewers on a wide range of issues, from the economy to national security. Now, many say NTA remains an authentic source of information in the country and has the strongest point in promoting unity, peace, and preserving the nation's norms and cultural values. But although critics accuse the NTA of reflecting only government views, it is adjudged by many as a rallying point for all citizens, providing a platform for effective feedback mechanism. And the NTA is still doing more as it migrates from analog to digital broadcasting. 40 years going. What's ahead for viewers and Nigeria? These are some of the issues we'll be talking about tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. But first, let's get to see this report by Adibola Brookslyn Sunday.
Television, an invention that came into being in late 1920, has become an integral part and good companion at homes in modern world, to the extent that people say it is hard to imagine life without it. In tropical Africa, television broadcasting began in Nigeria in October 1959 with the name Western Nigerian Television, WNTV, which was based in Ibadan, southwest Nigeria. And in 1977, WNTV and other stations were merged into one TV station, signaling the birth of the Nigerian Television, which was rebranded into the current Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, with Engineer Vincent Maduka as the pioneer Director General. Yakubu Ibn Muhammad is the current Director General, and he's been supported by vibrant
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, we start off this segment by taking on the views of the citizens. We took the cameras out and spoke to Nigerians. Let's get to see their assessment.
NTA has really improved, because when I was much younger, there were so many things I was seeing. It was analog, so to say, previously. But, you know, with time, NTA was able to improve to digital, to the extent that we even have NTA International. I noticed a lot in NTA. Previously, their newscasters then, their dress code, all those things. But with time, I noticed a lot of changes.
Actually, NTA was in one of the Nigerians' news coverage as a network that has wide coverage. They will actually expect that they should also improve in their services. But the program that I like most is the Newsline, which is on Sunday evening. I think the anchor person actually knows her job. The narration of the stories and how the acronyms, how they articulate them, that makes them catchy, and it makes them something somebody want to watch and to know what is going on with the country.
We're growing up. I think we have a lot of programs that was very educative. But these days it's like we are defeating from culture, which is very not encouraging. And those locations that we used to visit when I was a kid, like Tell by Moonlight and all those locations, we are no more having them again. And most of our children are growing up. They lack some of those knowledge about the the things we enjoy when we were growing up.
They are still living in the old school. I have to be real. Most of the program is not up to date. We are in a modern world now, at least they some are great.
NTA is a station to be, and also if you look back, and today there are a lot of innovations. NTA coming up with a lot of entertainment, news, educative, sportive activities, and what have you. If you look back, only that we are missing a lot in terms of just all themes that we normally have those days. So we want a situation whereby NTA with this digital era. Today, NTA, Twitter, all these digital platforms. If you look back, we don't have such kind of thing in those days. And we want a situation where the Ministry of Information and Culture will also add more value. Adding value means, putting in digital, equipment that can make NTA to be compared to, CNN, BBC, and what have you.
Yeah, NTA has been doing so wonderfully all this while, especially the change begin with me, the church drama you did that talked about time accuracy. It's been very wonderful. That is what I enjoy most.
The views of Nigerians here about the NTA at 40. Now, just before we took a break, Engineer Maduka was talking about what it took to train, to carry the NTA along and to make it what it was at that time. Now, the NTA in the last 40 years has also played a key role in propagating the culture of the people, the norms, the values, through numerous programs, dramas. In fact, it's said that the NTA set the tone for Nollywood today because people would recall all those who eventually became stars. We are first stars on the tube and it was on NTA. So, but these things cost money, as they say. And the resources, like Engineer Maduka said, were not there in the early days. And even now, as we speak, it's a tight call to have the kind of resources that an organization such as this needs in order to continue to play this key role of providing information, providing entertainment, education, and all the other values that we speak about at the radio.
Well, Siri, I think one of the things that I really would like us to talk about, because I've listened to those who have called in, and I've listened to those who are making very valid points about the constraints, about maybe the performance of NTA, where they think it's not okay. I mean, we had somebody who called from Makurdi and who said his experience there was not quite good. And we listened to the guy from Maiduguri who was talking about NTA does not tell us in time. We have to hear it from the foreign and all of that. I think all these criticisms are valid. And we have to accept it because NTA is a human organization. It has its own faults and imperfections. But if you just say so, you won't be telling the entire story. The entire story is why is NTA like that? And that's the point you are making. NTA is like that because of constraints, because of challenges. Broadcasting is not a ministry, right? But in Nigeria, government television stations are run like ministries, right? The ministries give directives. They insist on what they think you should do and what you should not do. In my time as DG, I get up to 10 letters every day from ministries. Oh, please, we want you to help us carry story. The mother of our assistant director died. I just wonder, who is your assistant director, let alone his mother? Why would we put such a thing on air? Because you are the mother ministry, you write all those type of things to me and you disturb me, you distract me, you know. So really, the greatest problem of NTA is government. Government is the greatest problem of NTA. If the government can leave NTA to run properly, then all this talk about BBC and all of that, you begin to see them in NTA. Now, if NTA has to do treasury single account, right? And there's no diesel. Where do you go to get the money, right? If you have to be following those bureaucratic rules, how do you cope? You can't. And we need to look at some of those things and know that now, you see, sometime during my time, government came out with a circular. All federal government establishments go and downsize. What does that mean? And I had to write so many letters to say NTA cannot downsize because you have upgraded NTA. From 27 stations, we went to 68. Then we are going to 101. And you say we should downsize. Who will manage the new stations you have directed us to open? And the reason why we are to downsize is because government says everyone should downsize. You hear stories like, oh, if you are a director for 8 years, you must leave. So Cyril has to leave when he's not, in fact, that is when we need him most. And many other people who have had to leave when we needed them most. Broadcasting is not done like that. It's not a civil service job. And we have to understand it. We have to have resources. We have to have men and materials. And government must allow NTA to do the job professionally because NTA is not a ministry.
Let's take on this call from Ahmed, who's been on the line for some time now. Hello, Ahmed.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. How are you?
Good evening.
I want to congratulate first NTA for 40 years of broadcasting in Nigeria. Secondly, I want to congratulate you for bringing my bosses on board today. I feel so excited. In fact, I am proud of NTA because I'm a product of NTA, Kaduna, and right now I'm in Jigawa, and two of those people there sitting with you have come to establish JTV Jigawa, and I've worked with them, and I've always worked with them before, and I have really gained a lot from them, even before then. And thirdly, I want to also say, a little bit of prayers to the past ones, people like Dahir Modibo, Abba Zoro, Minchika, that have passed away. May their soul rest in perfect peace. And those of them there, alhamdulillah, they are still there. I feel so excited today. I've also contributed my quota to NTA. I've been a chief clerk Samanja, the old Samanja, and when I was in NTA Kaduna. And believe me honestly, to the young broadcasters, I want to tell them that please don't rush. Don't rush. Please take it easy, young ones. Don't rush. The sky is your limit. You don't have to be employed today and tomorrow you are holding the microphone. Or you are employed today, tomorrow you are holding the camera. I mean, it takes a lot of experience. If you get the experience, the sky is your limit. Please don't rush young broadcasters. Take it easy. And to NTA at 40, please, as a nation-building channel or NTA like I used to know it, one of them has mentioned Ichioku, village headmaster, Samanja, who have united this country in numerous ways. And people really watched NTA at that time seriously. Then I want to advise NTA again, please, as a nation-building channel, try as much as possible, even though we're in a modern world. Nowadays, the young world don't even know what is NTBB. They don't even know what is NTBB. They don't know what comes on air, what does not come on air. The cultural value is not there. Nothing is there. So I want NTA to come up with programs that will unite this country. I mean, there are headman clashes going on in the country. What is NTA doing to dramatize even that? In form of Ichioku and Village Headmaster and Samanja and all those type of programs. I think you can come up with programs like that you will unite this country. Like, even though some of the young broadcasters will say this old guy is talking, I don't know what I'm talking about. Those people there united this country. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them there. They know the role they have played in this country to unite this country through the NTA. So I say congratulations. I'm proud of you. I feel excited, Mr. Maduka. I feel excited, Mr. I feel excited, I feel excited of you all there. I feel so excited. Congratulations for you being alive. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Ahmed. Yes, clearly one excited person.
Yeah. Well, there's an NTA family.
Right, the family. Yeah, but Engineer Shingulbigwe, still along those lines, putting all those programs, he's reeled some of them out. Those were the programs Nigerians looked up to. They had content which united Nigeria, which underscored the value systems and so many things, which also played a role in educating the populace. Those things cost a lot of money. NTA didn't have the resources. It was able to just manage to put them together. Today's broadcasting is a new ball game altogether. And the resources, even in this digital world, are needed there. How will a broadcaster like NTA cope in playing this key role with little or no resources?
Thank you very much, Cyril. You know, earlier on, I had mentioned, and in fact, I touched on a particular program. Those were the sort of things that bound the country together. But today, even at that, as time went on, during my time, things became so difficult. Because I can remember quite clearly that news, they used still cameras to cover events. And people accepted them. It was possible. I don't know whether it is acceptable now. Particularly now we've all gone digital, it's not possible. So, various factors really, affect the production of such the type of programs we're talking about in NTA. One is government that, like he has mentioned, I've also said that people who don't understand broadcasting should treat broadcasting as a profession and allow those who have been skilled in it, tell them what you want, and they will produce what they think is good enough for the country. We are not mercenaries here, and I'm sure that everybody has the loyalty of this country at heart. I would go along, to produce a country that is stable, reliable, dependable, that will be the joy of children yet unborn. Apart from that, funding also is the major thing. It's another major thing. Everything in television costs quite a lot of money. Hiring of personnel, the type of personnel you want to run the thing, requires quite a lot of money. And so there is the need for government, again, those who own the broadcast, who decides on what happens here, to look into the question of funding and give a leeway to broadcasters when they make commercials and all that type of thing, so that they can use the money to beef up. This is why you find that private broadcasting is doing so well, because most of them are broadcasters. They know where the shoe pinches, and what do when they get their money? They know exactly at what point to invest their money so that they get the type of result they want, and that is why they seem to be having an edge over NTA. We require funding, better funding for broadcasting.
Right. Okay, we have Yahya on the line from Lagos. Hello, Yahya. Well, I think we lost that call. Just like to encourage you to keep the calls coming through. You might be lucky the next time. Madam Mohammed Ibrahim, it's not been a walk in the park to manage the affairs of such a huge organization. Earlier on, Dr. Iridia talked about the stations that you had to deal with, and a few people who called in have also mentioned that a number of those stations might not be doing well. There are so many factors, the constraints here, and yet this broadcaster is expected to perform such a key role, which it has been doing in 40 years. Now we have another 40 years ahead of this organization in the face of digitization and what someone earlier called the new media, which I prefer to call the social media. How does NTA continue to remain relevant and provide these services?
There are three major pressures, I think, facing the NTA at the moment. You have to take competition into account. You have to take the pressure from government of doing the impossible. And then they have to take on the pressure of demands for development. And I think NTA has taken more than it could chew, because there is no reason why NTA should expand into more than 100 television stations. Maybe they should have expanded the original stations gradually, so that the essence is to cover the entire area. The question of community stations shouldn't have arisen at all. I think NTA rushed into it. I remember very well, take NTA Sokoto for instance. NTA Sokoto was covering Sokoto, Kebbi, and today's Zamfara. And there are 4 transmitters. And they are covering them effectively, even into Katsina, into Niger, into Niger, and even Kwara at that particular time. Now, to come in and start setting up small community stations and then abandoning these ones, I think it's a crazy idea. These are some of the problems which NTA is facing at the moment. Secondly, in terms of programming, yes, when we had little resources, we had Kokro at Dawn, became popular. It was sponsored by UBA. I cannot see why we cannot now follow the same system. Start producing popular drama programs and selling them, or asking other organizations to sponsor. Now, the last point I would like to make is, somebody mentioned about Premier League, Champions League, or whatever it is. If I were a DJ NTA today, my responsibility is Nigeria's Premier League. I have no business dealing with English Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, or whatever it is. My concern is to promote Nigerian Premier League. My concern is to promote African Champions League. My concern is how Nigerian industry can sponsor these games so that NTA can make more money.
Okay. At this point, we go over to Birnin Kebbi. We have Umar Anachi, I guess, on the line. Hello, Umar.
Thank you very much, Zero. I'm Umar Anache calling from
Right.
Honestly, let me start by saying it is not a problem. You know where your children are. My name is Frank Olize. Sunday Tonic is one of my favorite programs in the past, honestly, and it is obvious that NTA have come a long way in educating, enlightening, and entertaining Nigerians, honestly. So we are saying congratulations to NTA. And one thing that impressed me about NTA today is that they have hands to run the NTA, unlike in the past. You see today NTA covering opposition party. In the past, it's not so. You cannot see NTA covering opposition party, particularly during Obasanjo administration. So it becomes a kind of tug of war. But today, NTA covers a lot of opposition parties, their own, what do you call it, convention and other things. So kudos to NTA, more grease to your elbow, and congratulations. But then, I'm watching NTA on the platform of Startime. And I believe many Nigerians, particularly from my own village, don't have that privilege of having Startime or DSTV or any platform. And the NTA at Birnin Kebbi Station is offering a kind of skeleton service, or opening by 5, closed by 11 p.m., something like that. So if NTA can just state NTA stations, so that the people that have less privilege will watch NTA 24 hours. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Umar Anachi, calling in from Birnin Kebbi, a regular caller on this program. At this point, I'd like to bring to you some breaking news, and has to do with the death of former governor of Nasarawa State, Alhaji Aliu Akwe Doma. Alhaji Aliu Akwe Doma has passed on. He was governor between 2007 and 2011. He had been receiving treatment at a hospital in Tel Aviv, Israel. He passed on tonight at the age of 76. 76. He's survived by 3 wives, many children, and grandchildren. And I'm still talking about the NTA at 40. It's gone digital now, and yes, in terms of equipment, this is where the engineers come in and begin to tell us about just how you cope in today's world, where, well, anyone with a phone, with a smartphone, can begin to pretend to do the things that a large network like this can do, while you still require the latest in equipment. And the way technology has moved is that you acquire one today, and before you fully install or fully train on it, it's been upgraded. How does an organization like this cope?
Same with your telephone. Now, some of these, like the telephone, I was reading something in the last few days that 70% of the capacity of your telephone you never use. 70% of your car's ability to do certain things you never employ. Technology itself deliberately creates obsolescence so that you can buy more. But because it's a competitive world also, you want to keep pace with the Joneses. But some of the equipment you have can last 5 years, and the 5 years is a long time these days. You don't have to change every time they change their brands. But the issue really is the challenge from the man with a telephone, because you have a lot of material now that is being put on the web. I was discussing with somebody earlier on today that some of the old videos or films that we showed on NTA may not be readily accessible in the NTA archives today. But if you go to on the internet, you will see some Ichioku films, perhaps. You will see Kokra done. But that in itself is not a bad thing. You can make a video. I mean, in my time, you needed so much energy, so much electricity to cool a studio, because you had to have powerful lamps for your cameras to be effective. Today you are using fluorescents, LED lights, cold lamps, little or no heat. You have 2 standing air conditioners here. So these are in themselves great advances, and you can't stop them. And when you come to the social media, new media, they are part of the environment today that NTA has to cope with. And therefore you need to ask yourself, what is it you can do better than those people? And not be worried about they are challenging you. They've moved into this scene, now you move out of their scene and move into areas where they cannot compete with you. None of them is going to have a long-term view about issues that you are following. We're not talking about foreign stations now, but I give you the example of CNN, which has followed the slave trade story into Libya and back into Edo State in Nigeria. Social media is not going to do that kind of thing. And so new challenges must be identified by television. And hot news on the hour and so on is valid because of the kind of equipment you've got. You record some of these stories and you merely tweak them from hour to hour. So these are advantages, but you must keep pushing the frontier. You must keep, and that's the great advantage you have now, if you call it advantage. Yeah, it's competitive now. When we ran NTA 40 years ago, it was a monopoly. We were competing with ourselves.
Even the law was a monopoly.
Exactly. There were 9 stations going, And they had to enter competitions annually for the best drama, the best documentary. Well, it didn't go on and on. And so some of the best programs came out of stations themselves competing with one another. So your legacy kind of television or broadcasting now has a challenge from social media. And social media is citizen journalism. The point is that these are the things that you must take along with democracy. And democracy doesn't really believe in mass comm as such. It talks about narrow casting. Different groups of people have different interests. So in the past, we divided the time so as to accommodate as many people as possible. A children's slot, youth slot, women's slot, and so on and so forth. Today, entire channels are devoted to women, entire channels to youth, and so on and so forth. So that is a big advantage that modernity and digitization has brought, and it's for us to take it and run with it.
Right, I'd like to, Dr. Rida, I'd like you to look at it from that same angle, especially with the challenge of the social media, and recalling that one of the callers talked about people not knowing what is NTBB, well, not to be broadcast, materials that would not ordinarily be allowed on terrestrial television. And these days, with all the digital gadgets that people have around, people are able to access all these things. They expect to see them on a medium like NTA, which of course it would not show. But these are the challenges you have to face in a fast-changing world, which also deals with advances in technology.
Well, you see, when we started the program, my first statement was that the NTA of today is better. When I say better, I wasn't talking about human beings. I was talking about facilities. I was telling Engineer Maduka when we were coming in here, the story of what happened in those days in Benin when I just joined television. We had a camera in the studio, and every day, early in the morning, before you start transmission, you have to go and knock the camera 3 times so that it can work.
Wake it up.
Yes, so you wake up the camera. So today, nobody is subjected to that kind of ordeal or rigor that we had to go through. There are so many things you have today that we never had. You could have one camera for the whole station. Today, news will have so many, programs will have so many. Sometimes you will see marketing, looking for some jingles and all of that. They have cameras. So all of that really has taken broadcasting to a different level. And I think that is good. Now for democracy, I'm very happy with the emergence of social media. Unlike most people who are angry with the social media, I'm very happy about the social media for so many reasons that I will not go into. But I will say one. Social media is beginning to tell our leaders the value of mainstream media. They are now beginning to know that NTA is very good because what they see on social media, they cannot control it. Unlike NTA that you go and arrest all the people there. Now who do you want to arrest in the social media? Nobody. So you are now beginning to see that, now so you see people are discussing how can we control social media? Because they like controlling. Now everywhere is open and anybody can upload, download, check and not recheck anything. So the social media is really a development that is good for what I would call globalization. It's good for us to do whatever we can do. Again, with social media, there's really no need to be quarreling now whether NTA showed you something about another country or not, because you can get it from anywhere. But I must say this at this point, that I keep telling our Nigerian viewers that we want to grow. Nigeria wants to grow. We cannot be doing things that will not make us grow. When somebody was saying that, he wants to see foreign movie, I just wonder. And somebody told me the other day, so why does NTA not show Indian film? I told him, I said, well, go to India and see whether they are showing Nigerian film. If they are not showing Nigerian film, why do you want us to show Indian films? But the truth about it all is that we need to think about ourselves. Malam Mohammed Ibrahim made that point. What is the responsibility of NTA? Is it to show Premier League of Europe? If you do so, when will the Nigerian one develop? So some of these things occur. But beside that, as a professional, I can say without any contradiction that the foreign media stations are not very good professionally. They carry rumors, all right? That is what the local station will not do. And then you also have the senders in information, communication. We have what you call the sender, the channel, the message, and the receiver. Look at the sender. In Nigeria, there's hardly anything that is accurate. Not even the girls that were taken away the other day. You hear 110, 115. They were captured. No, they were not captured. 45 were saved. Oh, they were not saved. Oh, one truck came. At this point, you must be careful not to begin to transmit whatever you have heard. So that when the things settle down, you now come out with what makes sense. Because all the things you would have said will be things you have to be recalling and probably apologizing for saying so. So we have to look at the society too. Now, we talked about funding. This funding is important. Why will BBC get to a place? Because the BBC can have a helicopter. Can NTA have that? Who is going to approve it? Even if NTA has its own money, it won't be approved because there's a supervisor. So all of these things must be taken. We must look at how does the industry grow. You must look at that. And so I am really thrilled that we now have a social media that will tell us what people did not want anybody to hear. So now the rest of us can calm down and do our work properly.
Well, but you earlier today, yes, well, technically today, but let's say you had the public hearing by the House of Representatives, which put forward a proposal to amend the NTA Act, and so much has been said about it, and a lot of people are of the view that without an amendment of the Act as it is currently constituted, the NTA might not be able to perform to those, commanding heights that people, Nigerians, expect it to perform.
Right.
In terms of funding, in terms of getting the free hand to operate, you heard Dr. Heredia talked about that, and you also did earlier on, leaving broadcasting to broadcasters.
Yes.
And not having people who don't understand how these things work.
Cyril, I don't think that perfecting the law of NTA would make much difference. Because there are laws all over the country. Laws have been broken. Nothing has come out of it. No one has been arrested. No one has been killed. No one has... Oh, yes, that is the truth.
You have a lawyer right next to you.
Yes. No, I don't hold that view. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. He's a layman.
All right. I'm a layman. I talk like a layman. You see, I said this because until we come to re-examine ourselves, and look at things critically. When they perfect it, let those who are supposed to run it keep to those laws. And let those who still are in the position of really supervising it observe those laws. Then you can see that those laws will be effective. I don't know if you're understanding exactly what I'm saying.
No, I think in fact the laws can make a difference. The laws, because what you are preaching today is laws.
Yes.
They may not be perfect today.
Yes.
Now, if you know what is wrong with the law, why it is not perfect, then you amend the law, which is really what is happening.
No, what we are saying today is that is very good.
Yes.
We've gone to amend the law. What I'm saying is that when they amend the law, we should keep to the law. We should continue to improve on the law. The point I'm making is that the point I'm making is that there are laws in this nation. We have constitution. There are laws that have been broken. I'm saying that if we perfect this law, if they let NTA operate on the improved version of the law, that will be very good. Because indeed what we were told was that so that NTA would have a backing for whatsoever they decided to do. It is a step forward. What we are doing today is a step forward, better than what it was in the past. But what I'm saying is that as they improve the law, let us abide by the law. Let us continue to move by the law. Let us not take any unilateral decision at any point in time. That's exactly the point I'm making.
Well, let me chip in here, because NTA was established 40 years ago. And I think since the decree was drafted or was approved, nobody really seriously revised it. Things have changed. If you look at the BBC, for instance, I think every 10, 15 years the charter is revised, taking developments into account. So NTA has to face such kind of, if it is a test, it has to be. The law has to be revised regularly so that NTA can face the challenge, it can be empowered to do other things which the law did not contain. The law can make it compulsory for it to improve on certain aspects of its own operation. So I think revising the law is most important in this aspect.
All right, at this point in time, we'll take a short feature, and this is what we call NTA Ambassadors Speak.
I was privileged to work at NTA Sokoto in 1985, 86, and I was a presenter of the school quiz competitions, and I was also in the control room, and I worked with them in the transmission room. The director of transmission, we worked together, and also it was a family setup then, which we have this Mrs. Lawal then. She was the Assistant Director Administration. Then one engineer, Kure, was the head of engineering. Then my likes, the people I used to associate with were Labo Mohammed and Minasara Ilo. We used to go out. And more or less, I think I was more at home in Sokoto. At least, even though it was far from Lagos then, but I think I enjoyed working there, and everything was okay.
I was hired into NTA in 1982, shortly after my youth corps. And I began service in NTA Sokoto as a reporter stroke translator. NTA at that time obviously was the country's only network. And so it was indispensable to the nation's mass communication system. NTA was loved by everyone. If you were a reporter and the CEO on television, it's like wherever you go, they just embrace you and then they love you. There's admiration for NTA, there's admiration for whoever worked for NTA. In social circles, you are respected. And in any case, then you didn't have all of this competition from the satellite networks. And there was no other network on. So at events, if you went for coverage, then there was a lot of discipline on the part of the NTA. I'm talking particularly about the network center. You would be there on time, because if NTA was not present at the press conference, it would not start. That was how it was. So therefore, for people so that they don't even abuse you for keeping them waiting, you just had to be there. So NTA was needed by everybody for everything that they needed to do. And the pressure then obviously was enormous because everybody wanted to be on network news.
Transmitting or broadcasting to elites, middle class people, illiterates. So you have to be conscious of how you frame your work, how you even choose your pictures. If there was an accident, you don't go and show everybody dead. So we're very, very conscious of the responsibility to keep people calm in the midst of calamity, so to speak. We're very, very conscious of that. So our concern was how to keep people informed and make sure that we don't rock the boat. So we had meetings all the time, and we know that if you tell a story, the way people in Lagos will react to it will be different from how people in Maiduguri will react to it. It will be different from how people in Makurdi will react to it. So you have to be sure, you have to be conscious of this. And we had people from different parts. They say, no talk so, not to so, you know. Always we're interacting with each other all the time, particularly when you had sensitive stories. Or when somebody comes and calls a press conference and all the person is saying is cursing one person or the other and causing commotion. You say, okay, establish that the person had the press conference. Then take what you think people should know about the press conference, not all the curses. You don't do that. Other people can run the courses, but we will not do that.
Right, NTA ambassadors speaking there. One area I didn't want to go into initially, but which obviously I must have to, because it ties in with what we're talking about, the development of NTA. 40 years. It has given birth to so many positive developments in the industry. So let's talk about those broadcasters, the people who were responsible for giving NTA this large name in the past and who are still doing it. And that's talking about the personnel, the broadcasters themselves. I'd like to start from a general point and then come back to NTA specifically. It's been said in many quarters that standards have fallen, that the broadcaster today is a far cry from the broadcaster of yesterday, who was dedicated, who had to be innovative with very little, equipment. People have the internet now. They have, they have computers, and at the touch of a button, they can get all the information. In the past, you had to go spend hours in a library to get information. What do you think about yesterday's broadcaster and today's broadcaster?
First of all, let me, this is a matter of observation.
Yes.
You get a lot of frustration these days. People are complaining. You don't get the same motivation and excitement in a broadcaster today as in my time. Now, it may well be my own prejudice, but people worked. Yeah, obviously, you're not in full agreement. But people just worked because they were excited. I mean, take the chap who said that reporters were hailed wherever they went. Maybe that was part of the incentive. I mean, I knew one of reporters, a newscaster, and when we were chatting, and he said, I don't want to be a manager. Sir, if I go with you to the petrol station, they don't know you. They will serve me before they serve you. All right, it's not worth a lot, but this was the kind of fillip it gave the broadcasters. And perhaps because of the proliferation of broadcasting today, personalities are no longer the big issue. You are lost in the crowd now. So there is that difference of the kind of excitement and the commitment that people did under very stressful conditions then. And today, I mean, I'm not giving the reasons, but if you want to look at reasons, one of them may well be that in terms of, in the matter of remuneration, many other industries have moved much faster than public television. I don't know what they pay in the private sector. I'm sure some of them are not even paid. If I go by what happens with newspapers, but that's not my business. remunerations in public service broadcasting have been stagnant, and cost of living is higher. People feel far more frustration today. I mean, this is not to defend what happened there, but 5 years after you left university, you were, say, in NTA, you probably get a flat in Ikoyi. FRC and level 12 people had flats, I believe. Yes. Today, if it's Lagos, maybe you go and live in, I don't know, Ikorodu, and come to work by ferry. Right? So the workers themselves don't have the same kind of excitement and zeal as they had before. You have to survey and find out why it is. But the fact is that most broadcasters you talk to today are grumbling about one thing or the other.
Public service broadcaster, that is.
Public service broadcaster. Those are the ones I talk to. Yes.
Are they really public service broadcasters?
Are they not? Are you not a public service broadcaster? Are you not on GL?
Yes.
Huh?
Ministry broadcaster.
All right. So, as Mr. Maduka said, the sources for news are so many. So many private stations, so many state stations, so many independent stations. You can see so many newscasts that compare and contrast. And as Debashe was saying that in those days, there were very few of them. And during my time in Kaduna, some of our junior officers would go to Kaduna market and get free tomatoes, whatever. They never bought anything. The fact that they were broadcasting, they could get anything and yes. So, but now you can't do it. Even if you go, they won't give you.
Well, let's look at this issue from an angle of a study I have done. I've tried to do a study about the old and the new. And somehow I have come to the conclusion that the new is doing better. And that's why I started from that this evening. There are people who just like yesterday's things, always thinking back. Oh, it was very good in the past. And the past is always the best, you know. Another past, you know. Some of us here, when we're in office, people will think, oh, as soon as he is leaving, oh, he has left. And then, oh, during Maduka's time, this was very good. This was very good. Then the person who has taken over from him begins to think that, oh, does it mean I'm not doing well? Until he leaves. Oh, during Tony Radia's time, no, it was very good. No, people think of yesteryears. And even, it's not only broadcasting. They tell you that standards of education have fallen. How can you say standards of education have fallen? When you were in primary school, can you think of what primary school people do today? You'll be shocked at what your children can do with
No, these are private schools.
No, but even what children can do with the internet today, they'll be teaching their fathers what to do. So really, I don't agree with that. But my position is that we have had a lot of good things come in. When I came in as Director General, the newscasters in NTA were very few. It was just Cyril and some 3-4 people. All right? And I looked at it as a manager and said, no, we can't continue like this. I said, no, we must get more people. So all the people that now started reading thereafter, Fumi, Wakama, Funke Oga, Ademola Adeoye, you know, and so on and so forth. People were wondering, where have these people been? And all of a sudden, there were so many stars in NTA, and some people would see me and say, oh, you have recruited a lot of staff of recent. I said, no, I made them there. They were not given a chance. And if you don't give a chance, there'll be no continuity. There'll be no person to take over from another person. But Engineer Maduka has made a point of job satisfaction. It was there. It's no more there now because the society has changed. Things have changed.
Now, is it all about remuneration or there are other factors as well?
Yeah, see, when I joined NTA, you could become anything in 5 years. In 10 years, you could be a manager. In 15 years, you could be a general manager. You understand? Today, somebody can spend 10 years. He has not left one grade because the vacancy is not there. There are very many people. When our fathers ran the NTA, they probably had maybe 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000 people. By the time I was here, it was 6,000. So you have so many people, and you have to count for them.
The number came down.
So the number
7,000 in 1980.
Okay, good.
83. We were forced by government to reduce to 5,000 in 1984. Colade committee.
Yes. Okay.
And it was back to 6,000 your time.
Yes, 6,000. And it went like that. But you see, what I'm saying really is that take a person like Frank Olize, an outstanding broadcaster. You're talking about broadcasters. If I had my way, Frank Olize will always be there. But you cannot say that somebody must always be there. So you must make room for another person so that when he goes, the program doesn't die. Otherwise, the program will die if you don't have somebody who can, follow that. But look at, in broadcasting, you do 24-hour service. And then they tell you, you graduated with somebody, is in the ministry, and he's on level 10. Right? You're on level 10. Both of you are on level 10. He closes at 4 o'clock every day. Saturday and Sunday, he doesn't go to work. And you are working from 8 a.m. in the morning till network news time at 10 o'clock every day. The day that we are off duty, the manager calls you, come, there's breaking news. So how do you get to a point where there's diminishing returns? So those things are happening, and we have to accept that they are really there. So I think that we shouldn't really worry about development. It's growth, it's progress. No? Where somebody was saying, don't rock the boat. Engineer Maduka asked me, why shouldn't you rock the boat? If you don't rock the boat, there won't be progress.
Talking about the old days and these days, I want to believe that there's a lot of work being done now.
Yeah.
The standard of those you took in the old days cannot be compared with the standard of people.
They were secondary school people.
You took in secondary school
Yes.
people. And most of the things you enjoyed in them was maybe their flair. And then, of course, some of them were very creative. But these days is that a lot of education has gone into broadcasting. It's not as it used to be. It has a lot of training has gone into training a broadcaster. The amount of training that goes into training a producer, a news producer, even a program producer, I think is quite a lot compared to what we used to have.
That's correct.
We built on the creativity of the past and improved on it. And like we were saying, you asked if you're a public service broadcaster. Of course, that is what they call you. You may be doing what a public service broadcaster is not supposed to do. And then you are asking, is it job satisfaction or the remuneration? They go together, for goodness sake.
It's true.
Because they go together.
It's true.
Because after you have satisfied yourself with the job, you want to go home and eat. So they both go together.
You walk into the NTA newsroom now, you have 30, 40 graduates in the newsroom. When we joined television, we were just like 2 or 3 graduates. And people were even angry that these people have come to take our job,
When I started rising to the top, I remember I spent 13 years on the same grade level. 13
Even
years.
13.
Because there was no opening at the top. I had to give the DG.
Yeah,
before I
exactly.
could-
Okay, but we look at this and we say this is not restricted to broadcasting organizations. Well, just before we walked into the studio for this program, there was some banter going on in the anteroom there, and it had to do with who had set the pace. Engineer Maduka here, 2-time Director General of the same organization, and I think it was Dr. Radia who said, well, there is a link he has with Malam Muhammad Ibrahim, being that they both have been twice DGs of other organizations, not NTA.
And both of us are news people.
And they are news people. Now, with your experience, having been outside core broadcasting and being chief executive, is it the same? Is it what we see, that people still have this nostalgia, the feeling that yesterday was best? You hear a lot of it in music. People tell you old school. We don't know what they play now. Old school was a lot better.
Well, this morning I was at NTA TV College, and I was telling the students I met there that I'm much older than them. So I'm called old school. But I'm calling them old school because what I can do, they can't do it. Some of them don't even know how to send emails, right? As basic as that. So what's new about them if they don't know the new things? I mean, you look at some of that. But talking seriously, going out of NTA to do some job and coming back to NTA is quite enriching. It gives you room to think about what the public is thinking. As Director General of the National Orientation Agency, I had the responsibility of going around the country campaigning that there should be election without violence, right? And I saw that many people were not really educated with the kind of news we give. 1 minute, you just say it and you go. People have not even finished hearing you, let alone to understand what you are saying. So I always felt that, oh, the NOAA messages that I had to deliver were not well projected by television. So when I came back to NTA as Director General, it became my responsibility to ensure that NTA does not only inform, but also educates. And that when we have taken a story, we can take it back to current affairs and debate it for better understanding and education. So to that extent, I think there's a level of advantage, so to say, about going out, coming back, using it as a basis for comparing. And sometimes when you are out, you are looking at what I would call, you become a viewer. I saw so many people who were reporting for NTA on network news when I was DG of NOA. And I came back to NTA and I found that these people were casuals. I said, no, they can't be casuals because I've been seeing them on air. We've got to absorb these people before we take any other person because I have been seeing them on air. If I was inside, I won't see them.
Well, Madam Mohammed Ibrahim went to a broadcasting organization, which was the FRCN, and at a point in time, it was felt that all what you heard from television was the gain of radio.
He was a radio TV man before he came to TV. Even before he came to satellite TV.
Well, I had the benefit of both because starting with radio, graduating into television, having grown up in television and going back for radio, it gave me a lot of experience on how to tackle issues on radio, how to tackle issues on television. Now, FRCN was so versatile at that time, and volatile as well, because anytime there was a coup, that was the first point of coup. And I remember during the Oka coup, I was in Abuja when it was announced. And so what? I went to rush back to Lagos. Went to the airport, there was no flight. So I grabbed a car, found my way, got to Lagos at about 9 p.m. Went to the office the following day, the military said you couldn't enter. I said, but I'm the Oga Kota. Why have you been all these days? I was in Abuja on official duty. So there was quick consultation. And then a colonel came and started asking me, I said, look, are you doubting my integrity? The least you could do is to find out who is there. Is this your Oga? Yes, all right. Let him in. There was no point. So experiences of that nature. And I remember very well, in NTA I had a similar kind of coup kind of situation. There was this issue of second, is it Oyahilomi? Is director of
the NDLE, chairman of the NDLE there.
Right. The chief secretary of the chief of staff phoned just as network news was about to take off and phoned Patrick that he should announce. I said, no. In modern times, somebody could use that technology to make your voice sound like my own. So please, it won't take you 5 minutes to get television house. Come here, we put you on air, you announce it live. The man said, no way, that Patrick had announced it. For the first time, I saw sense of what Patrick was doing. I respected his judgment. He said, no way. He refused. It was after network news had finished, a senior military officer came with armed guard, armed soldiers, entered the studio, forced the announcer to announce the dismissal of Oyahilomi. Unfortunately for them, there was no network.
It was local.
It was over already, because the news was half an hour. About midnight, late Abdurrahman Mechika telephoned me to tell me what was happening in NTA. I said, okay. Is that what
you were on radios at that
No,
time?
no, I was
we were back in NTA.
Yeah, I was in NTA. So I went to Hilton Hotel. And I found the late Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Ali Mohammed, away with so many people in the room. I said, I want to see you privately. So I went, discussed with him, and told him the danger of doing this kind of nonsense. Anybody could topple your government simply because
you had access to
this kind of thing. The following day they said they sacked Patrick, they sacked Gold. Serious trouble. So I went back to Ali Mohammed. I said, look, tell Mr. President, if they go, I go. It's simple as that. This is a dangerous development. You better handle it with care. So 2-3 days later, Mala Ali summoned me. And we had extensive discussions. Went back to my office, and then a senior military officer called me and said, look, there was no way we could take back our decision. But Patrick had to leave Network News. Can you give us someone else so that the matter could die? See the guy. So that was how it was. So they accepted my idea.
Right. So all these could happen because those who had crafted the act, the law, the decree that established NTA gave powers to certain individuals.
They abused it.
Perhaps it brings us back to what happened at the National Assembly at the public hearing of an act to amend the law. And a lot has been said about you shouldn't put so much power in the hands of any one individual to determine what's in the public interest, what isn't, and the power to hire and fire. Let's bring it back to the lawyer about stuff.
Well, so I listened to the argument. I was not at the National Assembly today, and for so many reasons, I think it was good, really. I was not there, but I listened to what Malam Ibrahim said and what Engineer Maduka said. When you compare what they said with what Engineer Wigwe said, you begin to see the complications, because both sides are right. Amendment is good, and he himself accepts that, all right? But he has drawn attention to something. What is the amendment of law for? Is it for the sake of amendment, or for the sake of actually ensuring good governance, or ensuring that what you have amended is now a thing of the past? Now, in law, you have what you call the letter and the spirit of the law. So you must begin to look at how we deal with laws in Nigeria. If you amend the law and those to implement it are looking at only the letter and they are not looking at the spirit, there's a problem. Now, if we go outside broadcasting, I'll give you a typical example before I come back to broadcasting. The law says a state governor can nominate a set of people as electoral commissioners, and the House of Assembly will confirm them. All right? Good. That's the letter of the law. The spirit of the law, which is not written, presupposes that anybody nominated to an electoral commission should be an impartial person, because he's a referee. Now, but the power given to the governor to nominate, he just nominates anybody he likes. He could even nominate the chairman of his own party. Besides, even if he nominated very outstanding people, he could still control it. As you can see in Nigeria, all local government elections are won by the party in power.
100%.
100%. And most of the time, too, the results are called in government house. So you can understand. So no matter the law, that's what Engineer Wigwe was saying.
Exactly.
No matter the law, if people don't want to do the right thing, they will have a problem. What I have problem really with in the law of the NTA is the law that gives the minister authority to give directives to the NTA. That is a bad law. The second part of it that is very bad is that the law says NTA must obey. In which case, the minister can come to me as DG of NTA and say, my father is a woman. I should announce it because he has powers to give me directives. How? You know, so you begin to ask yourself, and if you are questioning his rationale...
The law is not as open-ended as...
No, I know.
It says you have the right as DG to say that the minister asked you to say it.
Yes. Yes.
I did it once, and the permanent secretary came and warned me never to do it again. I said, if you give me any order... I said, if you give me any order, which I don't believe is an NTA initiative, I will still say that you
give me the order.
Yeah. Because the law says so. Otherwise, I have no basis for challenging him. He has a bigger stake than me. But I have the law, and I throw the law at him. I also threw the law at somebody else, another minister. He says to me, oh, but that's a colonial law. I said, yes, sir. But that's the only one we have today.
And it's part of the BBC Charter.
Because the law was drafted along British ethical lines.
The point I'm making...
Nigerian ethics are lower.
Yeah. The point I'm making...
But you see, you have to have a reference for argument.
The point I'm making is that you did what you did because you had the courage, you had the knowledge, and many other things, such as you have somewhere to go after. But somebody who is just there and anxious to keep the job, he won't say anything. I tell you some examples of what happened during my time. The first lady died, and the burial was coming up. And the minister told me that the Federal Executive Council had decided that the burial should be low-key, and we should play it down. And I couldn't understand. The first lady died, the burial, and I asked him why. So because there had been a plane crash some days before, and many Nigerians died. So if you start talking about first lady, it will look as if, oh, you ignored all those who have died. You are talking about first lady. And for me as a journalist, it didn't make any sense because you can project both of them properly. The first lady is not an ordinary person. There's no country where a first lady will die and you say, play it down. So it's unprofessional. So what did I do? Because I am a professional, I came to the newsroom and took control and did what I thought I should do. As soon as the plane landed at the Abuja airport, I took the control and said, announce. The body of Stella Obasanjo arrives Murtala Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. That was the opposite of what the minister wanted. All right? Now, I had disobeyed the minister. I could do so because, as I said, Engineer Maruka and I, we have things we can go back to. If you remove me, I go and practice as a lawyer.
As an engineer.
So that kind of thing. But what happens to somebody who does not have the same clout?
Doesn't have any option.
Yes, does not have any option. He will be forced to do it. You see that all the time, and it's always happening. And you see that you are being directed here and there. Look, you see people who cover events. We have a story that says equal time to all parties. Yes. If you cover only one story of the opposition, you are out. In Benin, they covered a story of the opposition party, and the zonal director, the assistant director of news, the two reporters that went to cover the event they were deployed to go and cover were removed and posted elsewhere. Now, what do you expect such people to do? Are they going to continue? Yeah, next time. What do they do? These are the issues that are before us. So all this law or no law, we have to talk of attitudes.
Well, you want to ask me?
Yeah.
No. I think we have to have laws. We have to have laws that state what we think it ought to be.
Yes.
And it is a bad man who breaks a law. So if a minister breaks the law, he's a bad minister.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perhaps,
yes.
Perhaps what might also be part of amending the law has to do with the conditions we had earlier talked about, the motivation and the remuneration. Again, I keep bringing that in. For those who start work at 8 and maybe close at midnight, And that also would be, part of the law would be removing them away from what is termed as the core civil service.
Yeah.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
Yes.
Not necessarily, really.
No, core civil service.
Oh?
You can remove them from the core.
You see,
because there are examples.
No Nigerian government
Freely.
would do that freely, willingly, happily, to say that remove NTA from the core.
So why is BBC removed?
Wait.
No, they fought.
Remove
They fought
them
to
from
get
the
there.
core civil service. It means losing government control. And the moment government knows it is losing control of that organization, they'll be trouble. What I expect is for NTA to try as much as possible to lessen its dependence, financial dependence on government, generate as much revenue as possible.
And pay to TSA.
Yes, that's what the law says. Well, perhaps at this point in time,
continue forever.
let's take a second. Okay, let's take a second feature. It's we've dubbed it NTA Ambassadors Part 2.
Then NTA, or what was better known as BCNN, was to me the center of excellence. It was the citadel of television broadcasting in Nigeria. I always feel very proud to be associated with the Broadcasting Corporation of Northern Nigeria, because at that point in time, we had people who have excelled in that profession. And the kind of chaperoning, mentoring, and nurturing of television staff, whether you are a producer, a presenter, or a director, you are getting it from the source. The kind of interviews, the kind of training, the kind of packaging of such staff to be able to present the right image of that premier media house was legendary. You had people like Abazoro, who was one of the best television administrators in the country. You had Modibo, you had people like Admo Augi. I had also the opportunity of working with all of them, including people like Aliu Hayatu, Timaus Matthias, Jimmy Ate, Patrick Itiohe, to mention but only a few. So as far as I'm concerned, I think I was very, very lucky to be associated with these great names that have excelled in that profession at my formative years. I always remember BCNN or NTA Kaduna as a place that has opened my heart, my mind to the outside world.
Let me start first and foremost by congratulating the Nigerian Television Authority. I think looking back in the last 40 years, you have done so much in terms of bridging the gap between the government and the population, in terms of entertaining, in terms of educating people. Education and information, I think, are very crucial to getting any society to move forward. So I want to start by congratulating you. I had the privilege of serving on in the NTA in 1979. I was a student in the University of Jos, and every time we came on holiday, those days jobs were everywhere. You don't have to look around. All you need to do is just submit your application, and I was very interested in working with the NTA at that time. And every time we come on holiday, were given the opportunity to serve, and I served at NTA Bauchi in 1979 as a sound mixer. It was quite interesting those days because, like I said, jobs were everywhere, and I think that is what government is also trying to do now to ensure that people are able to have jobs, people are able to live their dreams. And we were very lucky in those days, like I said, and it was quite exciting serving in NTA. I can tell you that from what I have been seeing, so much has been achieved and so much can still be achieved. One area that I would suggest is, to the NTA is to look at the area of capacity building. For instance, you are playing a very crucial role in the war against insurgency and the insecurity challenges Nigeria is facing. But you need information management in conflict situation. It's a very unique area that probably the NTA will want to see how they can build capacity in that area so that they really understand what is happening with regards to military operations, what is air power, what is land power, what is marine power, how do you connect all these issues in order to give a balanced position to your viewers of what is.
Right, and the ambassador speaking about this giant network at 40. And as we wind down, in a couple of minutes, I should say, we'll just ask the closing thoughts of Engineer Maduka. What do you see the NTA as in the future?
I think NTA has to be a reference point for broadcasting. Many world institutions are recognized in broadcasting, and Nigeria must move up and join that league. That you are the reference. You are. I mean, we talk about a broadcasting consciousness for Africa.
Right.
Who else should do it other than us? And therefore, we must raise the bar from local broadcasting to an international level where we are quoted as a reference for things going on in this part of the world.
All right, a quick word.
I think NTA should rely on its area of strength.
Right.
And its area of strength is reach. All those who compete with NTA are not seen all over the place, but NTA is seen everywhere. So NTA should make sure that all its stories are coming from all parts of the country and not concentrate on Abuja and Lagos.
Right. Engineer Wigwe.
NTA should be consistent in when it talks about credibility. People must look at NTA as the most reliable source and build on it, continue to build on it.
Right. Malam Mohammed Ibrahim.
To gradually expand and build on its professionalism. This should be its target for the next 40 years. To look at South as not only the biggest network in Africa, but to be the most respected, most professional television broadcaster in Africa.
Right. Thank you very much. And well, and this is where we must leave this conversation tonight. It's been interesting, and for me, I have drawn a lot. And you know, when they say behind the scenes, you want to go ancient and be with the, as they say, I won't use the word, I say you can always draw a lot from it. Many years ago, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to sit with the Director General of the NTA then, as a young broadcaster in NTA when Engineer Maduka was DG. Neither would it have happened at the time Engineer Shingul Wigwe took over, and I don't think it would have happened easily with Malam Mohammed Ibrahim. Maybe at some point in time, under Dr. Iridia, I was able to do that.
We're eating together.
But here am I today, and it's been interesting hosting past Directors General of the NTA, as NTA marks 40 years. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I am Cyril Stober. Bye for now.